Eddie Hearn and his house of cards are now crumbling. The empire that he has amassed over the last 4 to 5 years, it looks like it's starting to come down. It's definitely under siege, and it looks like they're starting to show signs. Now, why do I say that? Well, look at what's been happening over the last year or so. Dylan White's obviously testing positive for 2 banned substances, has obviously really drilled home what's going on. And Eddie Hearn went on an IFL interview and tried to say that, he was cleared to fight, etc., etc. Not denying that this happened, but saying that he was cleared to fight. Yes, because UCAT have different protocols than VADA. If that was VADA, that fight would have been pulled. UCAT have a stance that you're innocent until proven guilty, okay? But let's not forget, Team Rivas were not informed. Team Rivas were never informed that Dylan White tested positive. That's why one of the reasons why I was upset, and I think a lot of other people were upset, that he went into the ring having tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, and the team who he was fighting were not informed, Mr. Hearn. Okay? He's trying to make it out that because he says it's clear, it's cut and dry. No, it's not. Okay? Eddie Hearn, in these interviews, he tries to come across, try and get the banter in and, almost speak down to people who kind of doubt him and stuff like that. And Eddie Hearn is a great promoter. He really is. I'm not criticising him for his promotional skills. He is a good promoter. I might not like Eddie Hearn from a personal point of view, because I don't think he's my type of guy. I don't think he's the sort of person I'd like to associate with necessarily. But as a promoter, I think he's very good. And I think that a lot of fighters miss the boat when they don't sign with him. Especially Michael Conlon, who I think should have signed with Eddie Hearn from the start, not, Bob Arum and Frank Warren. I think he should have been with Eddie Hearn. Look what he did to Katie Taylor. And Katie Taylor isn't even that good. Eddie Hearn is a good promoter. But I think he's finding it hard. A lot of these prospects that he's brought up from the Team GB squad, guys like Anthony Fowler, who else? I know Josh Kelly hasn't lost, but he's not been looking good as of late. And, other people as well. They're Ted Cheesemans. I think a lot of these prospects are being somewhat overhyped and somewhat being moved forward before they're ready. So a lot of his prospects are falling by the wayside. And some of the prospects who are winning, the guys like Akali and the guys like Watsi, they don't have that endearing personality that can get them over with the public. And I'm assuming that Sky have there's a lot of tension between Sky and Eddie Hearn, in my opinion. Because let's face facts here. Eddie Hearn is focusing a lot on his branch into the American market and the zone than he is on his fights over here. Because the cards that have been over here have not been strong. Oh no, they haven't. There was a bill that I think was meant to happen in July that was pulled. Because I think that they felt it wasn't strong enough. I think Scott Fitzgerald meant to be on the card. He pulled out with an injury. So there's been a lot of things going wrong for Eddie Hearn. And I think that this is just another hole in the wall. He's under siege from Al Heyman. Al Heyman now has the heavyweight championship of the world. He's got Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder. And if this rematch with Anthony Joshua happens, and there are some loopholes in the contract, Al Heyman's going to exploit that. And if this fight's in America or in Mexico, there's a very good chance that Anthony Joshua may lose again. He may lose regardless. I don't think he will, but there's a very good chance he may lose regardless. And even if Anthony Joshua does win, I don't think it's got the same drawing power as he had before. So where does Eddie Hearn go? And as I said before, this Dylan White failed PED test, or testing positive for banned substance, I should say, it's another nail in the coffin. And as far as I'm concerned, if the B sample comes back positive, then Eddie Hearn, he can't explain this away, in my opinion. I think Eddie Hearn, all this kind of banter, all this kind of, trying to, go and say this, say that. And Eddie Hearn, one of the things I don't like about him is when he goes in these interviews, he starts saying about other fighters like Deontay Wilder, like Lennox Lewis, calling them this, that and the other. And I always think to myself, I'd love to see you say that to their face. It's real easy to go and, say this and say that when you're behind a camera and that fighter is halfway across the water, or Lennox Lewis. Would you be so kind to say that to their face? Telling them to go F themselves? I don't think you would, Mr. Hearn. I don't think you would. As I said, Eddie Hearn, good promoter, but I don't know, he just doesn't have that. Some would say he's the gift of the gab, and to an extent he does, but I definitely think there's holes in what he says, because he'll say stuff about when Jarrell Miller failed his drug tests, several drug tests for several drugs. He said that he would never work with Jarrell Miller again, that he doesn't work with PD users. He's just signed Hughie Fury, someone who failed the drugs test, what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? Well, he signed Hughie Fury, someone who has tested positive in the past, with UCAD of all people. So, you know, those are my thoughts on this, and I just find it ironic that Sky, people at Sky, like, you know, Adam Smith, and Tony Bellew especially, Tony Bellew, and I'm actually going to just check and see, has he said anything, because Tony Bellew is one of these guys, excuse me, who is always very vocal when a fighter fails a drugs test. And, you know, he's vocal when, you know, it's an Al Heyman fighter, it's a Bob Arum fighter or someone like that. But would he be so vocal if it was a Sky fighter? So let's see. He hasn't updated Twitter in 2 days. Okay, so he's not had anything to say on this. So Tony Bellew, who was the biggest, you know, fanboy of Matchroom fighters, let's not beat around the bush here. He's a fanboy. What's he saying? So I think there's a lot of silence from Sky. Eddie Hearn has come out and said, you know, he was cleared to fight. To me, that's just irrelevant. I mean, he was cleared to fight. Yeah, that's UCAD here. And if that was VADA, he wouldn't have been cleared to fight. They would have pulled that fight then and there. That fight was in the States. Pulled then and there. Team Rivas were not informed. That's not good. I've also heard some stuff with the gloves that were happening in that fight as well. I didn't read too much into it, but they were saying that Team Rivas weren't happy with White's choice of gloves. Don't really know the full extent of that, but this is what it is. Eddie Hearn, he's having a difficult time of it. A very difficult time of it. And, you know, you can only stay on top for so long. That's my way of looking at it. And I think that Eddie Hearn, he's starting to feel it. Like his dad did in the 90s. And his dad pulled out of boxing. He focused more on darts. He still does really focus on darts, his dad, nowadays. But could Eddie Hearn go the same way? Who knows? Let me know what you think of this whole situation down below. Let me know what you think of Hughie Fury signing with Eddie Hearn. That's a strange one. Because, you know, he's not had the great relationship with Team Fury. But I don't think Hughie Fury and Tyson, I don't think them two teams are on the best terms either these days. So it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts is on Hughie Fury signing with Eddie Hearn. Let me know what you think down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like it if you did. Subscribe if you're new. And as always, I will talk to you after.